What's going on, gamers? Been the most insane day. As you guys know, I posted on my community. My brother passed away this morning in his sleep through a seizure. We tried to wake him up, called the medical, did all that. Not gonna overwhelm you guys with this, but this is not easy to even make this video, which is why I'm gonna try to only make one right now. And I don't know what's going on because I have to, do a lot of other stuff. But there's some stuff to talk about here. AGN is gonna keep up the face and stay strong, but devastating stuff here. Become a member if you guys want. Leave a tip down below. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get into this. Man, yeah, this is just not a good day. So it says PlayStation revives only on PlayStation 5 tag and new monitor ad. The ad promotes a 27-inch QHD monitor. So Sony's basically letting you know now exclusives are back here. And now we're saying only on PlayStation again. I try to tell people in the PC community and PC fanboys, I try to tell Xbox fanboys the same thing. The people who are actually arguing against that, not people who were okay with them. So like, yo, whatever. They just want their exclusives back. Some of those people. But this here right here solidifies what we've been talking about before, right? Can't believe I'm doing this video, but I got to be a tank. The ad can let life bring you down, guys. You got to stay strong, though I was probably going to take the whole day off. The ad promotes a 27-inch QHD monitor launching August 27th. With 240 refresh rates, HDR, and a DualSense charger, Sony's kind of trying to get everything in their own ecosystem. Using footage from Sucker Punch 2025 hit Ghost of Yote that sold 3.3 million copies in its first month. This marks Sony's pivot away from PC ports for major single-player titles like Yote and Marvel's Wolverine. After reports of weak sales and concerns over hurting PlayStation 5 demand. And Sony, as we said before, if you want to sell that PS6, it needs to have a strong identity. Exclusives brings the game back very interesting, where people have to stand on their feet. Xbox's way is just being a third-party publisher and trying to increase Game Pass. PC has to increase their storefront. Now you need to have your own exclusives, like from Valve. They need to make exclusives. Used to be where Blizzard had World of Warcraft on there, and that was a huge exclusive. But Valve has to make Half-Life 3 or Steam Machine is cooked, and it's pointless. Xbox Helix doesn't really have an exclusive identity, so it has to be a cheaper, hardcore PC that would save somebody probably $500 on the market to play higher end games and just be a way better option than Steam Machine, which I think is going to be the worst option. So PlayStation fans cheered the exclusivity return. We know Xbox fans wanted this too, while PC gamers called it a poor business move amid ongoing console debates. No, what's poor is the way that their mentality was. Like I said before, you didn't want to share your exclusive. You talk about all these early access indies, but Sony can't do that. And you got their games for years. They actually opened up the door and put them on there. You didn't support them. You went on political rants about things too. You pirated stuff. Not to say that you don't have a right to talk about politics, because some of that stuff was bad, but not everything is like that. Like Ghost of Yote was fine. But the point here is that you always thought your perspective was the most intelligent, but we already figured out with Steam Deck being $949, almost $1,000. How did you think it was okay to pay for that? And I've seen people come and defend that, which is the most insane defense I've seen when it comes to being a fanboy and corporate bootlicker. Like, it's just like, no. Synth Potato says, how do y'all feel about PlayStation having seemingly ended support for PC? I do find it exciting that exclusives are becoming a thing again for the competition aspect. We're going to see the image here. But I dislike the fact that games being locked to outdated specs like Bloodborne will be an issue again. Well, here's the thing with that. You're going to have PS6 if they have a next one. It's like, that's not going to really matter. But it says right here, we see the image right here, and this is where Sony solidifies it. They advertise this through that image, and it says game available only on PlayStation 5. There it is right there, only on PlayStation. And a lot of people were arguing that it wasn't official. Sony didn't officially come out and say it. It was Bloomberg, and then it was what Herman Ho says. And I'm like, but Herman Ho says with PlayStation, right? So him saying that has to be official, but they wanted Sony to officially give them some sort of glimpse that PlayStation 5 single-player games are now not coming to PC anymore. And this right here solidifies that for people. It's not an argument anymore. It's realizing that, okay, they are doing this for single player games. Now, if you see them do this for a multiplayer live service game, yeah, I think that that's not going to be good because they need as much multi-platform expansion as possible. And when you have an online game, you want as much expansion and support as possible to keep the community as alive as possible. Single player doesn't need people to be online with other people to get up in a group and do something. That's the difference between multiplayer live service and single player games. Single player games should define your platform more than any other game. Historically, it's always been like this, and they're incredibly important. If you look at what saved the gaming industry, it was Mario in the 90s. But even then, there was no online like that. But you kind of get what I'm saying, guys. Like Pokemon for the longest, but it had futures where you could link share with people, but it still had that aspect. Some of the biggest games of all time, even when Tetris was blowing up, it's like you'll see these games blow up, but the ones that are multiplayer are the ones that came way later on. The single player games always win game of the year too. If you notice that, like look at all game of the years, all single player games, highest rated games of all time, single player games. Yeah, you'll notice that. So, and for Western society, story narrative and driven focused games, definitely from PlayStation, was always getting up in there, and it gives you an idea. They want story, they want that emotional impact. You know, they want that good direction and good writing. They want good physics. They want good graphics. They love details, right? And this is going to be coming back tenfold in the PlayStation world. And remember, no matter how many games come on PS5, it's going to be played on max settings with PS6 or PSSR 3. And this is going to be a huge thing because the Xbox Helix is not going to be able to sneak its hardware in there and get all those games and try to say you can play them at a higher setting or maybe path tracing on or something. It just takes away a lot of the fun when they can't play that game. Same thing with Steam. You can't sit there and get PlayStation games and disrespect PlayStation, where they're the ones that are showing you love sharing their games, but you didn't support them enough. This right here ends all of that. And there were so many debates going on forever about this. Now we can pretty much say, okay, it's official. And I will show you guys when we get to some comments here. People were arguing, saying that the reason why they didn't believe that before is because Sony wasn't officially doing it. Now, going down to some of these comments as we now get the idea, and they wanted to do it with Ghost of Yote. Because if that was a game that's supposed to be coming to PC, it's been a while now. It's been out since last summer or whatever. So if they're doing that and they're saying that again right now, like all the way almost to next summer again, usually takes about 6 months now, they were saying. 1 year was kind of like getting a little bit short. And sometimes they do a little bit longer than that. But if they're doing that, then that gives you the idea. But we're going to get to this other comment there where I'm going to show you. But these guys actually are happy. Some of these PC gamers, this gets interesting. Some of the PC gamers are actually happy this is going on. Read some of these comments before we get to the other ones. He says, I have a PC and a PlayStation 5, so I'm happy true exclusives are back. This guy's not actually hating. It pushes better quality content, more competition, and innovation. I 100% agree with this. This is why I like exclusive identities. It's the same thing we've always talked about before. If you look on the market, NVIDIA being number one has their own identity, though I don't agree with their anti-consumer behavior. Apple is number two, and sometimes they're number one. Google would be up there sometimes. You know what I mean? Microsoft, and they all have their own identities. AT&T, when you think about AT&T, T-Mobile, sound effects, Marvel, Disney, Nintendo, the mascots, like those are all identities. Star Wars, you know what I mean? Sports teams, mascots, everything is about identity and doing very well with that identity, Nike and all that. So that's where we say that, yes, quality content, exclusive focus, more competition, and innovation. And that's what you want. That's where it was great when you saw that in the 360 era, when you saw that in the PS3 era, when you saw that in the Nintendo era, where they were all so unique and different, and you loved that. Seth Potato says, I hope Xbox brings back the competition too one day. Well, we already know that's not going to be able to happen. I really think exclusives drive innovation massively in these games. It's how we ended up with amazing franchises like Uncharted and Halo. Michael Kent says, as a PS5 and PC owner, somebody else who owns PC, I enjoy owning a PS5 more with exclusives because it gives you a reason to have one. But exclusives are very anti-consumer, he says, and I think they should be released on PC every 2 to 3 years. This is what Shuhei Yoshida was saying. If that's what Sony wanted to do, I can understand that, but I disagree because I kind of feel like, you know, you still need to have your hallmark, and that's why you share those other games. But if you wanted to do that, I'm not going to disagree with the company because that's their decision. They're the ones that made that IP. Nintendo will never do that. So there's going to be people that are always going to say that exclusives to them are anti-consumer, but I'm like, I don't get how that was possible when that's the way that have always worked from the beginning. And that's the way things were the most fun. Competition was the most fun. You know what I mean? Things were the most competitive. Like, why would you say that that's anti-consumer? It's not. You only think of that if you can't afford it, or you're thinking that everybody has to do all this. But if you can go pay $1,000 for an iPhone and you start telling me that every year, I can't take you serious. Sent Potato says, I've honestly stopped seeing exclusives as anti-consumer because of how competition leads to innovation. 100%. It's the main reason franchises like Gears and The Last of Us exist. Mario, Pokemon, Legend of Zelda hitting peak every single time, and you getting the most out of your hardware and trying to make a really good video game so that you know that it needs to do this to move your hardware. It makes everything better. But when you don't have to make your hardware better, then I think your development is not as good. Unless you're just a really good third-party developer and you've always been one. You know, that's different. Bagpipe says it never affected me much personally. I was indifferent, but I get why. What with the next Xbox machine being a PC hybrid, they had to do something to protect their brand. The revenue clearly wasn't worth the loss in the PC market in the long sale. The only thing is that the mistakes they made this generation actually got covered by that. But then you realize when it comes to PS6, you need the strongest identity more than ever. You don't want to be in a PS3 situation where being more expensive than it and having your identity be in trouble because you're not having the games be on the other platform. You see? So going over to some of these other comments, I was telling you, it wasn't in this post. It was down here. This is where things get interesting. He says, what do you mean the PC? It's a PlayStation exclusive. You yourself has... No, I don't think it's... Hold on. Oh, no. It might be somewhere else, guys, where we were talking about, because there's multiple posts I was actually reading. Maybe Payo has it here. Right? Oh, man. Yeah, it's getting a little bit rough here. Where was that at? But there was a post, basically people arguing, and we have plenty to talk about here, but basically saying that this is a problem because we didn't believe that PC was going to lose PlayStation 5 games just because Bloomberg was saying it. They were thinking Jason should have been wrong because Sony never officially came out and said it. There were some comments I was looking at earlier, but I was looking at so many different threads and I'm like, oh, wait, you know what I mean? I can't actually find it right now. So sorry about that, guys, but we're going to be looking at some other comments too. Like this guy says, I mean, didn't they already say they're going to stop porting the PC? It was reported, not officially stated by PlayStation. Sorry. This is where the argument was happening. Oh man, so much going today. You guys have no idea, but you know. And then OJ says, it definitely needed to be said here since they are showing it on a monitor and they could give the impression it's on PC right now. Nice to see the slogan return. They would suck it if it didn't come to PC. Just leaves a whole bunch of players who can just play a great game, just buy a PS5. This, and you know, that's kind of like what we were kind of seeing here. And it's, you know, we got interesting stuff going on here. CeeLo says, no chance I'd play that, even if it dropped for PC or for free on PC. This guy says, great. PlayStation should aim to be the best place to play. I mean, yeah, you're going to have to compete with Nintendo now. That's why I think also, since that's their competitor, that they need their exclusives to be strong. Because Xbox is not threatening you anymore. Look at Nintendo sales now. You have to compete with Nintendo. And in order to compete with Nintendo, you need strong identity because they have the strongest exclusive identity in the industry. Even people knew for the longest that they can stand on their own being exclusives only without needing GTA for years, Call of Duty for years, FIFA every single year. All those huge games where you thought sold and carried the 360, Call of Duty and all that, Nintendo didn't have any of that. Same thing in the Switch era. You're not getting any of those games, but they still sold more than everyone. That's how powerful their exclusive identity is. That's what I'm trying to tell you. If you look at the industry everywhere on the market, everybody that's at the top literally has that type of power and identity. Like Apple is only Apple. You know what I mean? Google and YouTube is only Google and YouTube. You know what I mean? You're not getting that anywhere else. NVIDIA is only NVIDIA with RTX and GeForce for the longest, and they dominated, though I don't like the way they went. Marvel was only Marvel. Disney was only Disney. You kind of get what I mean? So that's where you can realize and say, I am the best in the competitive market. Unless you just want to share with everyone and kill all that. And I think that people only do that because they have to. So... this guy says they've been more aggressive about keeping some big titles, console exclusives for longer lately. Whether that actually lasts years or just until the hype dies down remains to be seen. So we kind of get some ideas here what's going on in this world. People like pretty much the return of exclusives, I guess, unless you just are a PC only guy and you want to be able to have PlayStation games specifically be everywhere. And I get them on the Xbox Helix, which is like, yeah, but remember, you want the PS6 to be successful because the third-party industry needs that, and that's the biggest support in this world. You need that third-party support, guys. Trust me. Without it, it's like the third-party industry suffers massively. I want you guys to think about that. And if Sony wasn't supporting the third-party industry, do you know how many third-party developers would be in trouble? Because before that, they had to be supported on Nintendo and Sega in the 90s. And they've done a lot to keep that up and going. So I want you guys to think about that. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below as usual. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'd appreciate the support, guys. I can only get out one video today. Like I said, terrible stuff has been happening. Here's where some things got. You got Porter Rock saying game available only on PS5. This is where it happened, guys, if you wanted to see it. So it's Sony advertising with a monitor, but they're making it only on PS5 because a lot of people are now using monitors for consoles since they're closer to PCs now. So let me know what you guys think. Peace out. Keep on gaming. I'm going to try to get through the rest of this night later.